Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Her Drive podcast. For those who've been following the show for a while, you may know today's guest, and I'm really honored to have her back. And those of you who have not heard of Miss Kim Pence Light, you are going to be so delighted to hear of this wonderful human who has really helped me transform and continues to help me transform so much within my life. So, anyways, I don't really know how to fully identify Kim, but to me, she's been an amazing spiritual teacher and an alchemist of trauma, pain, perspective. And I know in her work, she mentors a lot of people from various backgrounds. And Kim, I don't really know how to fully identify you, but I would just say she is one of the most powerful people that I have ever worked with. And I'm not shy to hire people to help me or to sign up for a course, but in my time of working with Kim, I have just reached levels of empowerment that I never thought possible, and have been able to address certain experiences within my lifetime that, again, I never thought I'd be able to vocalize to another person. So anyways, without further ado, Kim Pence, who is like psychic, a mystic, all of the things. Kim, I don't know how to identify you, so how would you like to label yourself?
That's always a really challenging question because nothing seems to really fit.
Hmm.
Maybe an alchemist, a metaphysician, a psychospiritual healer, um, uh, a devotee, a love devotionalist,
Hmm.
and just devoted to the divine
Yeah.
in my
Yeah.
life and being of service to the awakening of humanity.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. That all seems more than accurate and adequate in describing you. And when you say in service to the divine, what does the divine mean to you?
Divine means to me all knowing, all encompassing consciousness that is that its only interest is to understand itself.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And the way I understand who we are as individuated souls having this beautiful human experience is that we're fractals of that consciousness. And we have a very particular perspective through which to explore consciousness through polarity, through understanding contrast. And that serves as the expansion of consciousness, the
Mm.
evolution of consciousness itself. And that thing can be called by many names: God, source, the divine, the universe. I use that term a lot when I was first coming out of the spiritual closet because the word God is so triggering for a lot of people and it turns a lot of people off. So I had to reframe my relationship with consciousness in order to be able to understand it, which is like my primary curiosity is what is going on? Who are we? Why are we here? And what are we capable of? And extracting ourselves out of the matrix of illusion and into the matrix of the consciousness that we're creatrix, that we are the creators of the universe, we are the creators of reality, and our evolution is to be birthed out of consciousness as an individuated soul, and then to move through the levels of consciousness and our exploration of contrast, and then be reabsorbed back into source to be birthed again. So that's, the cycles of creation.
Well, I'm curious for those who aren't sure, like if they're in the matrix of or not, the matrix of like illusion or the creatrix. How can they decipher between the two?
Yeah, that's a journey in itself, isn't it? It's waking up and taking self responsibility for everything that's in your reality.
Mm.
So when you can say, oh, wow, I'm super powerful. I created that disaster in my life,
Mm,
and now I'm going to uncreate it, and I'm going to create something different.
mm,
When we start to be able to have the perspective of our soul observing our human self, then we're starting to wake up out of the matrix. I think of it like the ocean. I think of the matrix, the false matrix, as an ocean. And we're underwater. We're under the water when we're asleep
mm,
to our own magnificence and to what's truly going on here and how powerful we really are. And as we start to wake up, we get our eyes above the level of the water, and we take a peek and we're like, oh, there's so much more. And then, we bob, we bob and weave back and forth, back and eventually we get all the way up where our whole head is out and we're like, oh, wow. And then eventually, and that undulation continues. And as we do our healing work, as we come into more self empowerment and understanding our true nature and beginning to explore the levels of consciousness, even to understand that there are levels of consciousness.
mhm,
And eventually, uh, we stand on top of the ocean, and then we can see the reality above the water, and we can see the reality inside the water, and we can make choices about how we want to move in those realms of
mhm,
creation.
mhm. Okay, I think that's a great way to describe it. And when you were saying that, of course, I got the image of Jesus Christ walking on water.
Yeah. Yeah. It's in the collective awareness, isn't it? That,
Mm,
oh, yeah, that's a thing, right?
mhm,
And to remember that one of the things that as he walked on the earth, he said, anything I can do, you can do and more,
right.
right? You are me, I am you,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
We are one. And it's like defragging our minds from the illusion and delusion and control paradigms that we have been living in for eons. And we've just moved into the age of Aquarius. What does that mean? That means that Pluto's gone into the sign of Aquarius, and that gives us the power to investigate the depths of who we are. So
mm,
we can wake up and make new choices about what we want to create.
mhm. Yeah, I think something that's been showing up for me, maybe it's just the algorithm or the fact that people are aware of, like you said, moving into Aquarius, what's happening with
Mhm.
Pluto. But I just keep seeing this messaging of like, right now you're being shown the depths of your suffering or your pain, but you have the power and the ability to look at it and then transform it now. So I don't know if those are one and the same, but it sounds similar to me.
Mhm. Yeah, I absolutely see them as exactly that.
Hmm. And for those who are kind of in the wheel of suffering and they're wanting to, as you said, like create a new reality, what is what's step one?
Mhm. Yeah, I think step 1 is to understand that it's okay to ask for help,
Hmm.
because we're not meant to walk this really intense path of awakening and, ascending into higher levels of consciousness on our own.
Hmm.
And that help can come from it's a place of humility
Hmm.
to say, I don't know, but I know there's a force that loves me so unconditionally that I can ask for help and the help will come.
Yeah.
And that help may come in the form of a guide. It may come in the form of your soul tapping you on the shoulder and starting to whisper, guidance in your ear. It may come from you turning back on your intuition and being able to start to hear it. It may come from a teacher in physical form or a healer that you meet or a friend that says, hey, come to this thing with me,
Mm-hmm.
and once we make that, I think at the core of it, it's deciding I'm not living this way anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I need to change.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what that is, and that really scares me, but I'm not willing to live this way anymore. My desire to evolve is trumping my fear.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I have this tattoo on my arm. And it's an FDR. It's a FDR quote, but it says the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And I've really been looking at this. It's a whiting tattoo, and I've been looking at it a lot lately, and really just trying to remind myself that fear is also an illusion, and the only thing that really exists is love, and to like lean into the love. And in the last week, I was abroad, and 3 times I actually stepped forward in a space and talked about some more spiritual kind of for many like off the wall subjects. And what actually happened was this beautiful alchemization of the conversation with people that I didn't even imagine would want to go into that space or have this depth to come up. And then just this morning, one of the people that I spoke with sent me a private message asking for like assistance and or recommendations for something that I had said. And to me, that is what I think the bravery is about. Is like for me, now I'm hearing like, oh, just say the thing, and it feels like fear, and it's like, that's scary. Why would I say that? But thanks to you, Kim, in many ways, I listen. I'm like, okay, I don't know why I'm supposed to say this, but I will, and I'm seeing very much the fruit of that, and how impactful it can be. And I can also look back on my life and see how many times I was hearing like a little whisper, or before I met you, it was like for a year, I was just hearing this drum inside of myself. And I just kept hearing like, I need to find a teacher. I need to find a teacher. So that's what it sounded like for me. And then through you, I've also been able to identify like spirit guides and not feel so afraid or kind of crazy that
Mm-hmm.
that I'm talking to like non-physical beings, and then to be able to talk about it publicly and not have shame or fear around it
Mm-hmm.
has been super transformative. And if someone had told me 2 years ago that this is how things would be going, I would have laughed and probably been in amazement and kind of like, no, no way, that's the reality. But I think that's the power of choosing to change and choosing faith and love over fear.
So beautifully said.
Yeah, yeah,
So beautifully said. And I think it's important to talk a little bit more about fear, if that's okay with you.
absolutely.
I'd love to share something that is not necessarily part of the collective consciousness, but it needs to be.
Hmm.
So, in my in my view of fear, in my investigation of it, I've learned that there are two forms of fear on the planet, two consciousness of fear. And that is illusory fear and authentic fear.
Hmm.
And I think of illusory fear as a mind virus that is always trying to control us, to not awaken, to not become self realized, to not question, to stay small, to stay insignificant, to believe that we're weak and disempowered. I'm just one person. What can I do? How many times have you heard someone say that in the wake of a disaster or the wake of tyranny or oppression or
Hmm.
war, right? What can I do? And that is illusory fear. Illusory fear is um, a consciousness that we make an agreement to be controlled by.
Mm.
And we do it when we're really little and we're not conscious, because it's generational programming. You should be afraid, don't step outside of the cultural norms. Don't be too big. Don't outshine your parents. Don't, be smarter than your sister. Like all of these don'ts, and we start to contract and conform and mold ourselves to be who we need to be in order to comply with the 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 family dynamic and the culture that we're in. And then that mind virus starts to control us in the form of criticism, self-criticism, the internal critic, and the other ways that we comply with fear.
Mhm.
Just like you were saying, don't say that. That's the
Mhm.
mind. Don't say that. And authentic fear is the fear that stops you from going through the green light, even though it's green and it's your turn, because there's someone that's going to run the red light and hit you and kill you.
Mm.
And you put on the brakes, even though the light's green. That's authentic fear,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
The fear of going a into a group or collective and knowing, I'm not going to talk to that person. I'm not going to go engage with that person. There's something telling me that's not healthy for me. That's
Mhm.
not that's not it's not going to be for my highest good.
Mm.
Right? It steers
Mhm.
us away from people who would cause us harm and towards people who are benefic and want the best for us and who are awake and aware. So
Mm.
it's that authentic fear is the tap on the shoulder that says, get out of this relationship. You're going to lose yourself.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so once we understand that, we can collapse the agreement that we made with illusory fear to be controlled by it
Mhm.
and say, I'm not willing to allow you to control me anymore. Get out of my reality. I'm the
Mhm.
queen of my queendom, and you do not have permission to be in my reality any longer. I'm not
Mhm.
afraid of anything. I'm divinely guided, provided for, and protected at all times. I'm the creator of this reality, and you are no longer in control of me.
Mm. Mm. Oh.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, I think you did a really great job of describing the differences between the two. I am curious though if there's a way of like a sensory description or like a
Hmm.
frequency shift that someone might be able to also identify between.
Hmm. That's such a beautiful question. Yes. Anxiety, illusory fears got a hold of you.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
A gut response to someone or an energetic um, pulling back. You see how my body pulls back when I'm like, oh, that person's not, they are not being authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Their intentions are not coming from love. They're coming from fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So paying attention to our body movement and how our body either moves us away from or towards an experience
Mm-hmm.
is a good somatic sense of authentic fear.
Yeah.
Another one is that gut feeling. I just know I have to do this and it doesn't make any sense and I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that little apprehension inside when we're heading towards our destiny, when we're heading towards our dharma. There's going to be a little bit of ooh, right? That sense of, oh, what's this gonna like? What am I gonna have to do? What's this gonna be like? But it's not an
Mm-hmm.
that guttural, like, oh, where your heart starts to vibrate and you start to get that contracted feeling or that not feeling in your gut,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense to me. And I absolutely know what all of those feel like. Oh, glorious, glorious. Well, before we were recording, I had asked if there was anything that was coming forward that you really wanted to, share. And if you'd like to pivot in that direction, I'd love to start going there.
Yeah, absolutely. When you asked me to come on the podcast again, I had a full body yes, and I didn't know what information wanted to come through, and I just really am devoted to being as clear and open a channel for the divine to speak through me as I can be. And so when I have an opportunity to do something like this, I sit and ask what wants to be shared, what can be of the most service to the people who will hear this, and in service to their evolution, in service to their awakening. And the theme that kept coming through over and over again was this term that I haven't heard anywhere, and so I was super curious about it, and it's sacred rage. And I work a lot with emotional intelligence, but in sitting with this topic, the term that came through was not sacred or emotional intelligence. It was emotional wisdom. And our emotions are the voice of our superconscious self or our soul. I use those terms interchangeably, our superconscious, beyond our physical reality, the consciousness of who we are, the monad, or our point of origin. Um, and that term, emotional wisdom, is also something novel for me to explore, and I feel like I'm being pulled down this path to share wisdom that isn't necessarily here, hasn't been shared, and isn't in the collective consciousness because it's so powerful.
Mm,
And it's time for all of us to remember how incredibly powerful we are. And if we can't hear the voice of our soul talking to us through our emotions, then we're disempowered. Then we are stuck in the matrix of illusion and victim aggressor paradigm, lack and limitation, scarcity consciousness, all of the things that we've grown up in.
mm-hmm,
And that's what we're coming out of.
mm,
Is we're coming into a consciousness or an awareness or a matrix of truth, divine truth,
mm, mm-hmm,
divine love.
mm-hmm,
And that is the love that passes all understanding. We can't grasp it. It's not humanly love. It's not what we've been taught love is. You know, if they love me, then I'll be accepted, then I'll be safe.
mm-hmm,
So this term came through, and I asked about it because it's such a big term, sacred rage. And I understand it because I've walked through embodying it, from being a people pleaser, from being completely disempowered and disenfranchised in my own life, from having believed the projections and false belief systems and limitations that I took in as I was growing up, about the world, about myself, about what I'm capable of, who I am, what the world is, all of those things. And and extracting myself out of those paradigms, those concepts, those constructs, those false beliefs. It gave me an internal power, an internal strength, an internal fortitude that's unshakable. And that is sacred rage because it's connected to our ability to be angry.
mm-hmm,
And in our culture, in many cultures, we are taught that anger is not an acceptable emotion.
right.
And what that does is it takes away our ability to know what our yes is and what our no is.
Mm-hmm,
That's the only thing anger is doing when it's used authentically.
Mm-hmm.
And so when that's taken away from us, we become the people pleaser. We become the nice guy. We become the one who suppresses our needs and makes sure that everybody else's needs are met. We become the the wounded healer, right? We become the one who says, "Oh, I don't really need to go home and rest. I can go and help my friend."
Mm-hmm.
Right? We override our needs and our knowing of what is right for us and what is not right for us. We get involved with the same abusive partner over and over again because we believe that we are weak and insignificant, and we believe their their banter about us,
Mm-hmm.
right? That, oh, you can't survive without me, right? And all of those ways that we're controlled by other people who see our innocence, and they see our the way that we suppress ourselves, and the way that we want so badly to find our value and our worth outside of ourselves. That is what happens when our no when our ability to feel our anger and address what's going on from an internal place, not of externalized rage, not of externalized trying to, out scream, out, outwit, aggress someone, but to have such a convicted sense of self that we know what is right for us and what isn't right for us. And we have the courage to say, I can't do that for you.
Yeah.
It's not right for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked about this term, trying to understand it and how to talk about it in public in a way that is digestible and a way that is non-triggering for people. And so the statement that came through, I often get these beautiful statements um, that come through, and they kind of capsulize this big humongous concept into something really simple and digestible. And that statement was, sacred rage is not an action, it's a frequency to embody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to say it again because the everything is frequency in my reality, and our words are a frequency that
Mm-hmm.
we're putting out into the world. And that frequency is either healing or destructive.
Mm-hmm.
It's either supportive or non-beneficial.
Yeah.
And so creating this into the collective, sacred rage is not an action. It's a frequency to embody. And it does something to unlock the wisdom, this emotional wisdom inside. And when we understand that our emotions are the voice of our soul trying to guide us, that's how our emotions are used. That's their purpose, is they are our guidance system. They are the messengers of our soul.
Yeah.
And we understand our emotions through that lens rather than through something that's happening to us, right? And you've met people who are stuck in their emotions,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they navigate the world through their emotions rather than through an embodied presence. It's really hard to be around people who are stuck in their emotions,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're either projecting anger and bitterness and rage and fear onto us. You can't do that. Why do you get to do that? I didn't get to do that. And there's this blame shame game going on. Or they collapse into the damsel in distress archetype, and I can't do that. You need to help me. Da, 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 right? So that's our emotions being used by that mind virus of fear,
Mm-hmm.
keeping us disempowered. Um, when we've done enough healing work through all of the ways that we can heal, through shadow work, through our reorganizing our belief systems through neuroplasticity, through past life work, inner child work, all of the things that we can do. We move beyond reacting to life, and we move into this state of being in response to life, understanding that we're creating what is happening in our reality.
Yeah.
And we move from our inner need to self-protect to our inner need to self-direct.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So healing is about healing that part of us that feels the need to be protected, that doesn't feel safe, that doesn't feel safe to be in the body, that doesn't feel safe to be here on earth, that feels disempowered. And when we do enough healing work to start to grasp that concept of I am divinely guided, provided for, and protected at all times, and I am safe, and it is safe to be here. And the only place that I have any power is in this present moment in my body.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only place I can affect change.
Yeah.
That I don't need to go out of my body anymore, right, and disassociate in order to be safe. I'm safe in my body. I have keys to a car. I have a place to live. I have food to eat, and I have clothes to wear. My basic needs are met. I am safe.
Mm-hmm.
And I trust myself enough to take myself out of harm's way.
Mm.
If someone is causing me harm, I'm getting up and I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm setting boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm enforcing those boundaries if someone violates them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot to investigate about this awareness, this consciousness of sacred rage. And I'm super excited about it because it's new to me. It's like, oh, I don't know this. I know that I've embodied it.
Yeah.
Um, and I came from a place of self-sabotage and disempowerment and believing all of the things that were projected onto me from my culture and my family, and stepping out of that and finding that core inner knowing.
Mm.
I want that for everyone. And I think that through this teaching that's coming through, it makes it accessible. It makes it clear. It makes it simple. And it is.
Yeah.
It is. And it's a journey.
Mm.
And it's a journey not for the faint of heart. It takes a tremendous amount of courage
Mm-hmm.
to become that internalized place of I've got you, girl, and I will never abandon you.
Yeah.
So, loves, last year I made a big decision. And the first was to commit to starting a whole new business and then ramping up production of this very podcast. It was definitely an exciting time. My creativity was flowing and my brain was on. But the downside was I couldn't sleep, and waking up feeling rested was becoming quite an issue. I found myself reaching intermittently for unhealthy energy sources and knew that that just was not sustainable for my ultimate optimized health and wellness. And that's when I started to figure out that there's this idea of mental wealth. Mental wealth is about creating habits that build your resilience, like investing in your future self. Of course, we know about sleep, diet, exercise, and stress management, but most of us aren't aware of smart tools like exogenous compounds that can really play a sharp role. One of those tools I found is Magic Mind. Magic Mind's focus shots have been a lifesaver for my mornings, giving me clean energy without the jittery crash. And at night, their sleep shots help me actually wind down so I can get the kind of rest that fuels my creativity. And this has not been about a quick fix or a magic solution. It's really just enhancing what I'm already doing in my healthy life choices. Since I've added Magic Mind to my routine, I feel so much more balanced. I'm sharper when I need to focus, and I'm actually getting some deep sleep that my busy mind and body deserve. And now they've bundled these amazing shots into a 24-pack so you can experience the same flow from day to night. And to my audience, the beautiful Magic Mind is offering 45% off their 24-hour pack. So you can go ahead and head to www.magicmind.com/herdrivejan, spelled JAN, to grab yours and join me in building your mental wealth this year. And before we sign off, don't forget to check the link in the description to get that exclusive discount. Here's to you feeling rested, focused, and ready to crush your goals in this beautiful year of 2025.
All this lands so much with me. And when I think of sacred rage, I think my definition of it was probably not as expansive as yours. Like for me, it feels like this, one, sacred, meaning that it is, I don't want to say justifiable, like it's innate, it's meant to be there, it's a part of my internal being. And it's also like a sense of self and a sense of protection and a sense of, like you said, I've got you, girl, I'm here. Like unfuck with ability almost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like, it's interesting. I can see different points in my life where I can see that part of me like flared up, and I don't know where she came from, but she was there. And I felt like as a younger person, I identified with her a little bit and almost was called an ice queen at times. And now I look at it, I'm like, oh no, that's an aspect of myself that she needs to be here. And the difference now is the shits that I give are a little bit less about whether it's being taken as an ice queen or not. And it almost feels like that part of me, when I see something is wrong or someone else being harmed, there's this part where I'm like, I'm going to stand up and defend this other person or defend this situation. And that to me is kind of what it feels like. But with your definition and mixing it together with emotional wisdom, it seems like a further connection into, how do I want to say this? Like just even being even more empowered in the sacred rage, right? Where some might think sacred rage is something else, like, which is not. Like you had mentioned not expressing it outwards, but more so internally. Like, how is this going to be my inner guidance system? How am I going to like pause and investigate what's here first, and then if I need to take justified action, then I will. Yeah, I think that's how it all falls for me at this point.
That is so rich and so good.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful explanation of this new, I think of it as a new technology that we're being given, and really stepping into the embodiment of the divine feminine, because who is the divine feminine? Right? She's the sacred womb. She's the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is not another aspect of the divine masculine, right? That we were taught, that was taken away from us. But the Holy Spirit is the divine feminine, and the creatrix, the sacred womb that holds the possibility of all realities.
Yeah.
And all creation, right? And as we re-embody this, whether we're in a male or female identified body, it's a universal embodiment that we're talking about. Embodying the divine feminine, one of the goddesses that is so embodied in this is Kali, and the Dakini. If you go into Tibetan wisdom, you'll meet the beautiful Dakini energy, and they are unfuckable with.
Yeah.
They are the creators of the reality, and that's who we are as well. And that's what we're being asked to embody now, is how can I reclaim my power and my ability to stand in my truth and radiate that power out. It's the frequency, right? Remember, it's not an action, it's a frequency to embody. So when we embody a frequency, we become that frequency and it radiates from us.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what so many of the people that I've worked with ask me, how did you become so like embodied as power?
Yeah.
And it's through these things that, that I do, and I teach, and I support people in understanding and learning and unlocking the wisdom within themselves,
Mm-hmm.
um, to really understand what we're doing here, and that this world that we find ourselves in that is so troubling, to be in this collapse of what has been created, and very destabilizing, and it can be scary, right? And it can be disappointing to think, God, we're still here, we're still using weapons of mass destruction against each other, and the horrific things. Like, I landed on this planet and I was like, oh my God, why would you even make these choices? Like, this doesn't even compute to me.
Right.
Like, not being from this planet, right? I'm from Andromeda, and I came to be one of the emissaries of sacred wisdom and the embodiment of strength and love, and to actually be able to emanate those frequencies of sacred rage and Kali energy is like, don't mess with me, I'll burn the house down.
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah.
Don't mess with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's that energy. So the thing is, this takes me back into, the Chinese martial arts. It's not learning to be a warrior. It's learning to be so incredibly empowered in the frequency of sacred rage that you don't ever get into an argument.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone really wants to press it, you just take them out. Right? With one wave of your hand, you
Yeah.
take them out. They're 50 feet away from you and can't touch you.
Yeah.
Right? That's the Dakini energy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is don't mess with me.
Yeah.
And if you want to, bring it on. I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere, and I'm not afraid of you.
Yeah.
Right? And it's a softness.
Mm-hmm.
It's a softness. It's a gentleness. It's not aggression. It's not that illusory power that I'm going to control you by force. I'm going to stab you with a sword,
Yeah.
right? I'm going to cut off your head if you say something I don't like.
Yep.
It's not that.
Mm-hmm.
It's an embodiment of our true and authentic power,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that power is love. That power is, I love you. Don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
I won't put up with it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll walk away,
Yeah.
right? And allowing people to meet us in that softness, that gentleness, that womb of creation is, I'm here and I love you and I see that you are suffering, and I'm going to be right here while you move through that, because I trust you to be able to heal that for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you move through this eventually. When you make the decision that you're done creating that way,
Yeah.
you will change.
Mm-hmm.
Even the most aggressive narcissists, even the most aggressive psychopaths, even the most aggressive dictators do eventually wake up and decide, I'm not creating this way anymore.
Mm-hmm.
My heart is broken, and I am traumatized, and I need help.
Yeah.
Right? And that's when we step into humility and say, I can't do this alone. I
Mm-hmm.
need support. I need help
Mm-hmm.
to figure this out, to change my life.
Yeah. Well, when you talk about, all of that lands so well, of course, with me, but something that you had said in regards to um, the Holy Spirit and that being feminine energy in the womb. Um, in my viewpoint of what's going on, I think there's a lot of women who are waking up to their power, and I believe myself to be one of them. And I think it's, while there's all this mass destruction and this chaos that's going on in the world, I have such deep faith in the feminine waking up around the world into the realities of mysticism and the roles that we played, especially in like Christianity that was covered up. And I can see how by me stepping in and embodying the frequency of sacred rage and integrity and being powerful in the way in which I interact with men, it's shifting how they show up. And it's showing them that they have to step into their humility, as you said, into their power, into their healing. And I think the more that women really step into this and own that I'm allowed to be all that I am, which includes sacred rage, and it includes like no, it's then going to help shift all of us into a different direction. And I think as the collective female rises, well, I don't know what's going to happen, but I have my suspicions, and I'm very excited to have chosen to stay on the planet and to be a part of this. And in the work that I'm moving into now of working in sexuality, the men that are coming and talking to me desperately want to be different. And it feels for me like really good in my heart that that we're all, a lot of us are moving and starting to get a little spark of something is just not something. Many things are very wrong here, and I've got to look at myself first rather than externalizing all of the pain and the blame and pointing fingers outside of myself. And I have hope for that as the collective, as the I would say like communities or people start to wake up, then our leadership will be then held accountable, and that will start to shift as well. And a woman who I've been, I didn't know about her until the last year, Marianne Williamson. She's a Democrat, but I started ingesting one of her books recently because I knew she was faith-based, but it was really interesting to witness someone who is so faith-based also play such a vital and intelligent role within politics in America. And I'm hopeful that in the future, those will be the types of people we have that are getting the nomination or getting into the positions of power, and showing us that we can lead through integrity, through love, but also put our foot down on the nonsense that is occurring now.
Hallelujah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is where I see that we are going as well. I
Mm-hmm.
share your view. And it's, any birthing process is messy and
Yeah.
it's painful and it's scary.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes us to our core to find out what we're really made out of.
Yeah.
And whether you're birthing a baby or a business or, a new way of being in the world, a new healing modality, whatever it is, that birthing process it's arduous.
Yeah.
And it requires focus and dedication and being a love devotionalist,
Hmm.
I think, is a club that I want to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to be a part of that club.
Mm-hmm.
And I want that to be my compass.
Mm-hmm.
My why. Why do you do what you do? I want to be able to say thank you. I'm so grateful at the end of every day.
Mm-hmm.
And having love as a guide,
Mm-hmm.
universal love
Yeah.
as a guide, not humanly love.
Mm.
Will take us there. It's written in the stars.
Mm-hmm.
It's written in the stars, and we can trust that. We can trust the light that's being given to the planet to help us wake up. That's what the solar flares are from the great central sun. is it's more photon, more illumination, more consciousness. Photons, consciousness, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Coming onto the planet that's inspiring us, that's helping us, that's motivating us to say there has to be a different way, and whatever that is, I am devoted to finding it and living it.
Yeah. I am curious on your viewpoints on like a split in consciousness. So I know different like biblical texts talk about like the second coming of Christ, or like heaven on earth, or like, you know, those are going to ascend who have a higher level of consciousness or accept divine within their hearts, and then those who are not are going to stay within or go to hell or stay within this like chaotic nature. Yeah, so I'll leave it at that because I'm curious just where your perspective is and what that might look like.
Yeah, I think this is a really important question, and how to understand this from alternative perspectives. You know, our belief system and our perspective create our reality.
Mm,
That's hard science. That's not woo-woo spiritual speak,
right.
right? And when we understand that our beliefs and our perspective create a reality, we get to start being curious about our perspective. And we have two different perspectives that we may not be aware of that are constantly there. And so to illuminate or focus on or bring our attention to these two different perspectives, I think is like I had the most powerful experience of this that was I am changed forever when this occurred to me.
Mm,
When I was given this, it was a tremendous gift. And I went through something with a family member that was very triggering. It was very painful. It was very challenging. And uh, and I was going through this, and I was doing a lot of internal work. I was doing multidimensional healing work in the family lineage, in the genome. Right, I was working at the deepest level of our holographic field to transmute this pain out of my ancestral lineage. And I got through a lot of it. And I woke up one morning and I just had this knowing. I saw it. I saw it just so crystal clear, these two different perspectives.
mm,
And I saw my human perspective, my egoic small self perspective, which I love and adore, right? There's nothing about that aspect of self that I want to ever get rid of, but I do want to evolve that that aspect of myself, which is why I was doing that really deep ancestral healing work on the timelines of miscreation. And I saw the whole perspective. It's painful. This is hard. I want it to be different. I have a lot of judgment. And then I had this opening of my heart, and I saw the other perspective, and I said, okay, I understand my human perspective. I've just gone through several days of this really deep, intense healing. And I was on the other side of it enough to see this other perspective. And I saw my soul. And I was given the gift of hearing my higher self, my monad, that aspect of me that's non-physical, say, what is love's perspective of what just happened?
mm.
And I saw the simplicity. You know, the soul is very simple and very quiet and gentle, and is pure light. And I heard you were given the opportunity to be free. You were given your freedom
Mm,
from that entire paradigm. And you can choose, both perspectives are valid and valuable. And you can choose which one you want to frame that experience through,
mm,
which one you want to see that experience through. And the pain and the trauma and the drama and all of it just vanished from my whole entire physiology, my emotional body, my nervous system, my spiritual body, my mind, my mental body, my etheric body, my whole entire auric field, my entire matrix was completely cleared.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a trace of the pain and the judgment and all of that. I just choose
Yeah.
to see it through the lens of what is love's perspective, what is my soul's perspective of this. I
Mm-hmm.
am free. I was gifted my freedom.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answered your question about the religious view and what's happening with the levels of consciousness, but I think it's so important that we understand perspective and the role that it plays, and that we get to choose our perspective. We're the only ones who can.
Right.
We can let someone else force their perspective on us,
Mm-hmm.
but that's disempowering.
Right.
That's not embodying sacred rage.
Mm-hmm.
Or we can choose to stand in our own perspective and say, let me question what is happening here. Let
Yeah.
me ask, what other perspective can I see this through? What else is possible? I want more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think it does answer the question to a certain degree, as far as like you can have heaven
Yep.
right now through your mindset. And just a few days ago, one of my colleagues had brought up this philosopher named Schopenhauer, and he's like, "Oh, I think you would like to read it. You probably completely disagree with what he's sharing, but it would be interesting." So I pulled up a bit of this philosopher's worldview, his life story, and his points. And I was like, well, yeah, I do agree with his points. However, I have a different perspective. And my perspective was very positive and uplifting, while what the root of what he was saying was true. But he was looking at things from a narrative of suffering and,
Mm-hmm.
and lack and desire. Whereas I was like, well, desire can be very positive, because if you're desiring, then you're creating. And that's the power of being. So I think that really feeds into the point of, some people believe that there's going to be this mass destruction, all the evil will be removed from the planet, and then, it'll all be peace and love for whatever, 1,000 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I think it's more so the message just coming through is, choose your heart set, right? And as to your point, like being the club of love. Amazing. Well, Kim, I would love to, open up the floor for anything else that you would like to share or to touch on.
Okay. I want to reel back to your question about Jesus and the second coming.
Mm-hmm.
So from my view, I do believe that there was a man who came and tried to help humanity awaken, and we know the story that's been offered through the texts, and whether or not that story is accurate, we can't really know.
Mm-hmm.
But what I do believe is what is being shared there in saying there's going to be a second coming. We're in it.
Yeah.
We are in the second coming, and we're realizing that we are Christ consciousness, and we have to choose to embody it.
Yeah.
And we have to choose to do the hard things, to say no when we want to say yes, to set boundaries when when we have been submissive, to stand up for ourselves and say, I'm not doing that. I'm not allowing you to treat me that way.
Yeah.
I'm not putting up with that glass ceiling. I'm going to get a sledgehammer and smash it. Right. And, and all of the ways that we can become empowered and embody love.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And know and understand that the power of love trumps everything.
Yeah.
And to understand that if there is an aspect of ourselves or someone else who is behaving in a way that is not loving, that is not compassionate, that is not kind, it is an aspect of the self asking to be loved.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. And when we see ourselves in worry, fear, dread, self-loathing, criticism, all of the things, to stop and move into your soul's perspective and notice that that's the human self and say, oh, my darling,
Yeah.
I love you. What do you need?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
that's the healing of the division within. And when we heal the division within and we become whole and we become the multidimensional creators that we are, then it's the the butterfly effect. What we do here affects the whole world,
Yeah.
and it starts to radiate out as the wholeness of the self. And then the person next to you become the lighthouse, the beacon for them to go, oh, wow, you're really changing. What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Or you left that dysfunctional relationship where you were being abused. How did you do that?
Yeah.
Right. And we start to share with each other and say, oh, come this way.
Right.
I'll share that with you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that is how we create heaven on earth, because it's a choice.
Yeah.
It's a level of consciousness. It's within. It's not out here,
Yeah.
in here.
Yeah.
Right. And we understand that you're just a version of me pushed out,
Mm-hmm.
that we are literally all from one source.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, the tipping point has already happened. The choice has already been made.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The recalcitrant souls who are choosing not to wake up will eventually wake up. And so I don't see a bifurcation of worlds where, one world is going to be destroyed and all those souls are going to be, consumed back into the fires of, creation. I see that we are moving as one self, one source, and eventually those of us who are awakened and choosing love and choosing kindness and choosing compassion in the face of all odds and saying, I know that eventually you wake up and you change, right? And holding that state of compassion that is non-judgment. I don't have an agenda for you to wake up. I just know that you do.
Yeah.
And then that person who's receiving that blast of light can start to soften and
Mm.
say, maybe I'm not as in danger as I feel.
No. Yeah.
And maybe I can start to reach out and ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think that we create paradise on earth, and that we're in the process of it. And I just know that this is where we're headed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts on it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for having me back on the podcast. It's been a real joy.
Absolutely. And for you all who, normally with the guests, we dive into like their history and a bit of that. We already did that in a really big way with Kim, and I highly recommend everyone go back and listen, because it really tells this magnificent story of, transformation and, how in many ways you came to be where you are. And so I highly recommend everyone go back and listen to that episode. And Kim, just thank you so much for, sprinkling us all with so much power and light and inspiration and love. And, of course, I'm like number one cheerleader for you, and just am so honored that you are back again. And for those who want to find more about you, work with you, where is the best place for them to do so?
My website is kimpencelight.com, and I'm off of social media right now, so I'm not producing anything for my YouTube channel or my Instagram or Facebook, but I'm on all of those platforms as Kim Pence Light. So there's a little bit of like social presence
Mm-hmm.
on those platforms, but I really felt guided to take some time to really go deeper into my own awareness, my own knowing. So I'm not on social media right now.
Yeah, I think that's really an excellent point that all of us could probably do from time to time is turn off those external messaging or feel like we have to be producing and outputting. And something you had said earlier triggered a real quick thought in me in regards to something I noticed recently is I am on social a little bit more and I'm seeking dopamine hits. And just today I was like, I had that conversation, like, oh, sweetheart, what do you really need? And I figured that out. And it was just a really beautiful reminder that we're not needing to reach out for external validation, yet these tools are there for us to reach people, to expand, be more expansive and expressive and fun. But if it's being used to outsource our sense of power and love and everything else, it can really become a negative crutch. So I applaud you taking some time and some space. And of course, we have your website so folks can go there. But anyways, Kim, thank you so much for being on Her Drive.
I adore you, and what you're doing in the world is so important. And I really value how you show up in the world and who you are and the courage that it takes to be you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. All my love.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for tuning in to Her Drive. Please share this episode with anyone who you just get that little hint would appreciate it. And of course, I always ask for reviews to be left. That helps the show be found by others. So much love, you all. Bye.